Yeah, obviously from a trading, like these sort of trading markets, these like lending markets, like these are obviously, big pieces. But I think like today, we're certainly seeing, we have a front row seat on this, but like people are starting to discover that this stuff is actually useful for payments and settlement. This is, you can actually, whether you're a business or you're an individual or you're someone who lives in somewhere where you'd rather have dollars, like there's all of these places where people are saying, hey, these are actually, like dollars are a good store of value. These digital dollars are actually even a better store of value because they're sort of self-sovereign and you can do, sort of have the utility value of the internet. But sort of, this sort of transition from market infrastructure into payment system, like that's obviously like, that's, from our perspective, like that's the long thesis. And, there's all this noise around this stuff around the world with like CBDC and, our stable coins, private sector stable coins going to be, effectively like permitted as payment systems in the West and the US and so on. What are you thinking on the sort of this jump from like markets infrastructure to actual like payments infrastructure?
Yeah, so I'll say we probably don't have the ground zero look at it, but from what we get told anecdotally from the people that are on the large side, so you got to realize like the stablecoin markets, like they work in the sort of fashion where you have like large individuals and corporates that will like generate huge blocks of it, and they're selling it to secondary brokers who are then like sort of the end middlemen that like distribute it everywhere. So there's like kind of this network that's built. And like we tend to only know the people that play in like the larger sort of ticket realm. But what we hear is that specifically like over the course of this year is that there's been like a pretty large demand for dollars in a lot of like regions where it's either like it's either hard to hold dollars like structurally, or they can't, or if they can, they're worried about like seizure and or like risk of that money like sort of sitting in accounts that like are visible via like So there's this really good for stable coins because like you can just hold them natively to yourself. You don't have to like trust anybody else. There's been a lot of demand from regions like that for people looking for stable coins. And I think like a lot of people try to push Bitcoin as this narrative of like this store of value. They're like, well, you can hold Bitcoin. And like the reality is people want dollars. They want like stability. Like Bitcoin moves around a ton. And like this idea that like, oh, like you can just keep your wealth in that. It's like people can't do that if it like moves around 50-60% every year and a half. And like, yes, it has generally gone up, but like, what if it didn't over that 8-month period and you needed that money? So
people who have meaningful long-term savings that want to allocate some of that savings into these sort of long-term risk assets, that's a great place for Bitcoin or speculate, right? And then, but for like the average person around the world who's like, I need a now store of value, and that like, I gotta, pay my expenses and not have, massive depreciation and so on. Like they're looking at things obviously differently.
Right. They're looking for dollars. People, that's what they want. They like want to keep their value in dollars stable. So they ultimately want them. So yeah, that's been the big driver, a lot of the new issuance. Cause like, look, all this new issuance clearly isn't going to crypto. Like crypto's having a year, but it's the money getting pushed into this system is orders of magnitude more than we saw in even like 2017.
Yeah. Now we're definitely, we're witnessing that firsthand, which is pretty cool. We've talked about it a bunch.